Artsah, of the land of Seir, Sadeh, the country or field of Edom. So let's talk a little bit about what's already happened up to now, in case you didn't go back and check out any of our Bible studies from the past. You'll know that Abraham brought forth a child. His name was Yitzhak, and that's because both Abraham and Sarah almost died laughing when they heard that they were going to have a baby in their old age. And so Yitzhak means laughter. They died laughing almost, you know. So then we know that the offspring from that relationship was Yitzhak. Yaakov came along as the first, Esau and Yaakov came along from Yitzhak. But you got to get the context, and it's all important because you have to know who these men were. These weren't just any old ordinary men, but these were the men that God chose from days of old to be his representatives in the earth. He communicated with them openly by visions and dreams and by talking to them clearly, plainly, and abundantly. And when God first introduced himself to Abraham, he was working for his father, and his father was a pagan idol maker. And so he wasn't really a follower of the one true God. So who were the teachers during that day? You know who they were? Shem was the one who took his father's place, which is Noah. Hebrews tells us Noah was a preacher of righteousness. In other words, he taught God's laws to men, whoever wanted to know. And so Abraham, at a very young age, would have gone to Shem and or Noah, and learned about God's laws. And there he learned that there is only really one God. So what does he do? He goes home and he starts destroying his father's idols, but he left one of them standing in the middle. And his father's upset because all of his idols have been destroyed. This is how he makes his living in this country, you know, from these heathens that worship all the gods. Now, his father really did believe in Yahweh, the one true God, but he didn't have a problem of believing in and observing them all as gods.
Oh, that's almost like Moses' father-in-law.
Yeah, Jethro was the same way.
Yeah.
So when we have the picture of who these men were, Abraham didn't teach his children about the laws of God and the one true God. He sent him to the preacher of righteousness, which would have been Noah and his son Shem. So he went there to learn, and when he came home, he messed up his father's idols and busted them all up. And his father got all over him. What happened to my idols? He said, you should ask the one that's standing there in the middle, you know.
He believed in all the gods.
Yeah. So anyway, God speaks to Abraham and tells him he wants him to leave the land that he was born in and to go to a place he would show him. And so Abraham takes Sarah and Lot and pack up all their animals and their servants, and they head for ultimately the Canaan, the land of the Canaanites. So all of these men had a reputation for hearing from God and seeing visions and dreams. So why would Yaakov be any different than the rest of his parents? Isaac did too. Yitzhak was very comfortable seeing visions from his God, the God of his father. And so he was told by God, Yaakov was told by his God to go to the homeland and pick out a wife.
Yeah, that's right.
And so he picked out Rachel. But Laban was the father, and he snuck the ugly sister in, Leah. It says she had weak eyes. I mean, she was not that pretty in the eyes. And so he snuck this ugly sister, if you will, in by keeping her veiled until the night of the marriage. And when he went in and slept with her, he didn't know he was sleeping with Rachel.
Yeah.
And he thought he was getting the agreed upon daughter. And of course, it turned out not to be her. That morning, he was really upset, and he went and confronted Laban. And so that's one of the reasons why today the people of Israel do not veil the faces of the bride before the marriage. Now, Christianity hides their face, and why do they do that? Well, because they don't have the pain of waking up next to the woman that you had to work ultimately 21 years to get,
Yeah.
you know, or 14 at least years to get Rachel. So anyway, here is Yaakov. He's coming home, and Esau was really hacked at him when he left because he had purchased Esau's birthright for a bowl of pottage.
Oh, yeah.
And Esau said, well, if I can't have my something to eat now, I'm going to die, so what good is my birthright? So he gave him his birthright for the bowl of pottage. And then, while he was out preparing venison for his father, for Yaakov. For Yaakov, he came in from the field, Esau came in from the field, and had the meat ready and had it savory, spiced up with nice spices and cooked just the way his father liked it. But Yaakov had already come in with a goat that was dressed out that way. And Esau tasted it, and apparently he was deceived by them. But the way the story reads, he was deceived. But I question some of that. There are lots of reasons why I doubt the validity of that. But God did see that Yaakov was able to receive the blessing from his father, which was his plan. So he comes back from selecting his wife and ended up with 4 wives, and only one of them was the one he really went for. He's coming back home, and he sent forth his messengers here in verse 3 into the land of Seir, his brother Esau's land, in the field of Edom. Then in verse 4, Vayetze, he commanded Otam, he commanded them, saying, thus you shall say, now this is the, emor is the verb, it's the qua'al verb. To in the beginning of it is the word you, the pronoun you, second person pronoun you, and those who are going with you, you are all going to say, and this is an imperative statement. There's no question about this is what you are going to say to Esau. And this is called a paragogic nun, and it puts an imperative on the statement. So you will say unto Adoni, my Lord, to Esau, thus Amar Avdaka, your servant, Yaakov, Im Lavan, Garti, with Laban I have served, or sojourned. V'echar, and stayed there until ata, until now. So this means and afterwards until now. So he'd been there with Lavan all this time. And then in verse 5, I have oxen and donkeys and flocks men servants and women servants, and I have sent to tell my Lord that I may find. Motze means literally to find or discover. Chen. Chen is grace, but a neka, in your sight. So he's looking for mercy, for grace from his brother Esau. And the messengers returned unto Yaakov, saying, we came unto your brother Esau, and also he came to meet you, and 400 men with him. Now, there's a question in this text that needs a little further study, and we're going to talk about that. And that is the word malachim. And we've talked about this in previous studies, and I don't know if you have been with us when we discussed it. And I'm trying to get back to verse 3 here. Vayishlach, in verse 3 it says, Vayishlach Yaakov malachim. Malachim is actually a word that is typically used for angels or righteous elders. Okay, so here we see Yaakov sent righteous elders or angels before him to Esau, his brother. Now keep in mind, all of these guys are people who see into the rakia, the space in between heaven and earth, the interface. And Yaakov is no different. He sees into the interface. He sees the angels. He sees the demons. He sees the blessings and the curses. And he's guided by these visions that he gets while visiting the rakia. So he sent these messengers before him to his brother Esau. And these messengers, I believe, were truly the holy angels of Yahweh, that he sent them before him. If he's going to make peace with his brother, his only real hope of doing so is going to be in the rakia, the space interfacing between heaven and earth. So he sends these messengers, these angels, before him to Esau and to the land of Seir, the country, this field of Edom. And continuing on.
So you're saying that he sent them in the rakia, not in actual?
He was sending them, it looks to me like he was sending them in the rakia. You'll see more of this here in this story. Vayatzav, and he commanded Otam, he commanded them to say, saying, thus, you shall speak to, and that's the imperative, to Adonai la'asav ko amar avadecha Yaakov im Lavan garti. With Lavan I have been sojourning, and after until now. So I've stayed with him, and afterwards, up until now. I am just now coming home, in other words. And then, verse 5, I have all this oxen, donkeys, flocks, men servants, women servants, and I have sent to tell my Lord that I might find grace or favor in your sight. And Yashuvu, and I have returned, we have returned, Malachim el Yaakov. So the Malachim are the ones who returned to Yaakov to say, and I believe this was still in the rakia. It could have been that there were also messengers sent in the natural, but if you think that Yaakov, after putting all of these striped and spotted sticks out in the watering trough so his animals will be born striped and spotted and streaked, you don't think that that's not done in the rakia, think again. That's all done in the rakia. It wouldn't have had the effect on the animals otherwise. So he says, we came to your brother, to Esau, and also he is coming to meet you, and 400 men are with him. And Vayirah, and he was afraid. Yaakov was. He became afraid because he not only saw in the spirit that these men were coming, it says so here in just a few minutes, that he saw that they were coming, but he also heard it from his messengers, and probably there were some people, messengers along with that. And when he was afraid, Yaakov was greatly afraid, and he's distressed to him. And he divided the people that were with him and the flocks. And by the way, Vayachatz. This means literally into two, half. In modern Hebrew, if you say 7:30, it's Shiva Chatz, Hotzi, Shiva V'Hotzi. So that'd be 7:30, 7.5. Okay, so he divided in halves the people that were with him, and the flocks and the herds, and the camels, and into two bands. So he's divided them in half into two different bands. And he said, if Esau comes upon to the company, Mahachne, to the company, Echat, one of them, Vahikahu, he smite it, Vahaya, then it shall be, Ha-mechaneh, the other company, Ha-nish-ar, which is left, Lifleich-ta, shall escape. So he's hoping that his people will not only get to survive, but the animals and things that he's divided into groups, the second half will somehow be able to survive too. He says, I am not worthy of the least of the mercies of all of the truth which you have showed unto your servant, for my staff I passed over. Passed over with my staff. This Jordan, and now I have become two bands. He's telling God, I'm not worthy of all the blessings you sent me, how you increased me, even in the face of Laban, who tried to change my wages 10 times. But here I am, and I've now divided into two bands. And he says, please deliver me. Here's the please part of the statement. Nah. Hatzileni. I want to see the root of this. Natsal. To snatch away, whether in a good or a bad sense. So he said, deliver me, I pray you, from the hand of my brother, Miyad, from the hand of Esav, Ki Yareh, because fear I do, Anoki, I fear, Oto, him. Fin means lest, Yavo, he will come, Vahikani, and smite me. So he's afraid he could die. And the mother with the children. He's afraid he could lose his whole family, all the things that God has blessed him with. Verse 12, V'atas Marta, you said, Hey Tov, I will good etiv. Good, I will good you, Imak, to you, and Shamti, and make or place Zaraka, Kahol, as the sand of the sea. So you're going to become countless in number. Asher lo yisfar, which cannot be numbered, merov, for the multitude, for the myriads. Now, I'm going to go ahead and turn it on back to the English, and we'll continue studying it from the Complete Jewish Bible, and we may periodically go back and look at some of the Hebrew for clarification. Okay. So, let's go on down to where we were in the Hebrew, verse 10. This is where he said, I'm not worthy of all the love and faithfulness you have shown to your servants since I crossed the Jordan River with only my staff, but now I have become two camps. Please rescue me from my brother Esau. I'm afraid of him. I'm afraid he'll come and attack me without regard for the mothers or the children. Now, why is he fearful like this, since he has seen so many situations where God has just appeared before him and spoke to him? And he says, oh my goodness, I'm afraid because I've seen God's face and have not died. You know, I live to tell about it. But he's begging him, please rescue me. But he's already told him he's going to do him good, so why does he need to do that? He's a mortal. Yaakov is a mortal. When you're mortal, it's hard to distinguish and to remember even what was said to you when you were in the rakia. So it's like a dream. Have you ever woke up in the morning after having dreamed a really powerful dream and then you couldn't remember a thing about it later? Just a few minutes later you couldn't remember it. Well, that's the way Yaakov was. He had these visions, yeah, they're like dreams, but when he woke up from it, it didn't take long for that to fade from his memory. So here he is, he's begging, please rescue me. And come, Esau, I'm afraid of him, he'll come and attack me. Excuse me, without the regard for the mothers or the children. You said, I will certainly do you good and make your descendants as numerous as the grains of the sand by the sea, which are so many, they cannot be counted. So here, he's remembering the things God promised him when he saw these visions, but the nature of the vision is that it kind of fades away after a while, and he's remembering that Yaakov is very angry with him. Verse 14, he stayed there that night and then chose from among his possessions the following as a present for Esau, his brother. 200 female goats. That's a lot of goats. 200 female goats, 20 males. That's what it takes basically to tend the 200 goats is 20 males, so that they all are in production all the time. 200 female sheep and 20 males. 30 milk camels. That means they are nursing babies and that they are also used for human milk. Humans did drink camels' milk, even though camels are unclean. Their milk is not unclean. And so they would drink their milk for nourishment. 40 cows and 10 bulls, 20 female donkeys. Why did they have more bulls than cows? I mean, not more bulls than cows, but the ratio's up. Why?
You mean more cows than bulls?
Well, no, they still have more cows than bulls, more females than males. But the ratio went up. In other words, instead of maybe 10 cows, they got, well, let's see, they had 20 males to 500 females, right? Or 200 females. So it's a 10-to-1 ratio. And now we have 40 cows and 10 bulls. That's not,
1-to-4 ratio.
that's a 1-to-4, right. And so why did he have more bulls than he needed for the cows? When Esau, my brother, meets you and asks you, whose servant are you? Where are you going? And whose animals are these? Then you are to say, they belong to your servant Yaakov, and they are a present he has sent to my lord Esau, and Yaakov himself is just behind us. So he also instructed the second servant and the third, and all that follow the droves. When you encounter Esau, you are to speak to him in the same way. And you are to add, and there are just behind us is your servant Yaakov. For he said, I will appease him first with the present that goes ahead of me, and then after that I will see him myself. And maybe he will be friendly toward me. There's a proverb that says that a man's gift will make a way for him. And this is talking about when a man comes before a king. If he has a present for the king, it will soften his heart and cause him to be receptive to you as a guest and treat you with respect.
This is still true today, especially with politicians.
Sure. So anyway, he says, I will appease him first and present the goats ahead of me, and then after that I will see him myself, and maybe he will be friendly towards me. So this is a outplaying of that same concept. Verse 22, so the present crossed over ahead of him, and he himself stayed that night in the camp. He got up that night, took his 2 wives, his 2 slave girls, his 11 children, and forded the brook. He took them and sent them across the stream, and then his possessions across. And Yaakov was left alone. Some men wrestled with him until daybreak. Who do you think this man was?
I think it was Yeshua.
You're thinking it was Yeshua?
Oh.
Okay, that's a good guess. What do you think?
Or you think it was Michael or
Was it?
where you said Raphael? No.
Is he in the natural or the supernatural?
Supernatural.
It has to be in the Rakia.
Yeah, it has to be in the Rakia, and that's where the interface is. And that means that there are some physical laws still at work, and there are the laws of the kingdom of God at work as well. So in the kingdom of God, everything is kind of worked inversely or backwards. So it's kind of a confusing place to be.
It's very confusing because it really doesn't go into an explanatory, which is what sort of.
Right. Okay, so he got up that night. He took them and sent them across the stream, and then his possessions across too. And Yaakov was left alone, and some men wrestled with him until daybreak. When he saw that he did not defeat Yaakov, he struck Yaakov's hip socket so that his hip was dislocated while wrestling with him. So this has got to be a supernatural event here. The man said, let me go because it's daybreak. But Yaakov replied, I won't let you go unless you bless me. The man asked, what is your name? And he answered, Yaakov. Then the man said, from now on you will no longer be called Yaakov, but Israel, because you have wrestled with, because you have shown your strength to both God and men and have prevailed. Oh, well, this must be God he's wrestling with.
No, but we've gone through that before, and it's still not 100%. Even you said at one time, maybe it wasn't God. Because he said,
Okay.
Because he says, I see his face and I didn't die.
But this is why the Bible is so interesting. It leaves so many things up to you to figure out. And that's why I enjoy our discussions, and that all of your opinions are counting. They're all worthy of the discussion. So in verse 30, Yaakov asked him, please tell me your name. But he answered, why are you asking about my name? And he blessed him there. And Yaakov called the place, and this is where you get the real clue. Peniel, the face of God. Because I have seen God face to face, and yet my life is spared. So we know that he was wrestling with God. And he would not have went won unless God wanted him to win. That's a fact. As the sun rose upon him, he went on past Peniel and limping on the hip. This is why to this day the people of Israel do not eat the thigh muscle. It's not actually the thigh muscle, but there is a muscle around that area in the hip.
The sinew.
Hmm?
The sinew of the hip.
Right. And so it's probably more like the...
It's the hollow part of the thigh.
Yeah. So the people of Israel do not eat the thigh muscle that passes along the hip socket because a man's...
Still the same today amongst the Orthodox? Or
Yeah. Still the same way amongst Orthodox. So the man struck Yaakov's hip at its socket. Now verse 33 continues, or chapter 33 continues. Yaakov raised his eyes. There's that key phrase I told you about, where the patriarchs look up and see. So Yaakov raised his eyes and looked out, and there was Esau coming, and 400 men with him. So he's seeing them in the spiritual realm, the rakia, the in-between, where heaven and earth interface. So Yaakov divided the children between Leah and Rachel, the two slave girls, putting the slave girls and the children first, Leah and her children second, Rachel and Joseph last, and then he himself passed on.
That sounds like favoritism there.
It is. He doesn't mind it if Leah gets killed. He doesn't want her to, but if she does, he would rather her than Rachel, you understand? But anyway, Joseph came last, and then he himself passed on ahead of them, prostrated himself to the ground 7 times before approaching his brother. So he hasn't even come close enough to see Esau and know that it's really him yet. But he knows because he saw it in the rakia. You following me? So in verse 4, Esau ran to meet him and hugged him and threw his arms around his neck and socked him. And we know that's not punching out. Kissed him. Esau looked up on seeing the women and children, and he asked, "Who are these with you?" Yaakov answered, "The children God has graciously given to your servant." Then the slave girls approached with their children, and they prostrated themselves. Leah too and her children approached and prostrated themselves, and last came Joseph and Rachel, and they prostrated themselves. Esau asked, "What was the meaning of this procession of droves I encountered?" And he answered, "It was to win my Lord's favor." He didn't lie to him about it. He wanted him to know that he was wanting his favor. And Esau replied, "Already, my brother, keep your possessions for yourself." Yaakov said, "No, please. If now I have won your favor, then accept my gift. Just seeing your face has been like seeing the face of God now that you have received me. So please accept the gift that I have brought you. For God has dealt kindly with me, and I have enough." And thus he urged him until he accepted it. Esau said, "Let's break camp and get going. I'll go first." And Yaakov said, "My Lord knows that the children are small, and the sheep and the cattle are suckling. They're young and concern me, which concerns me, because if they overdrive them even one day, all the flocks will die. Instead, please let my Lord go on ahead, and of his servant I will travel more slowly at a pace the cattle ahead of me, at the pace of the cattle ahead of me, and at the pace of the children, until I come into my Lord in Seir." Esau replied, "Then let me leave some of my men with you." But Yaakov said, "There's no need for my Lord to be so kind to me." So Esau left that day and returned to Seir. Yaakov went on to Sukkot, where he built himself a house and put up shelters for his cattle. This is why the place is called Sukkot, shelters. Having traveled on from Padan Aram, Yaakov arrived safely at the city of Shechem in Canaan and set up the camp near the city. What does Shechem mean? You know? Shechem means the shoulders, or the place of burdens, where you carry your burdens, okay? And so he went to the city called Shechem in Canaan, and he set up a camp near the city. From the sons of Hamor, Shechem's father, he bought he bought for 100 pieces of silver the parcel of land where he had pitched his tent. There he put up an altar which he called El Elohei Israel, the God of Israel. And then coming on down to chapter 34, we come to the story of Dinah, the daughter of Leah, who she had borne to Yaakov. And she went out to visit the local girls, and Shechem, the son of Hamor, the Hivi, the local rulers, saw her, grabbed her, raped her, and humiliated her. But he was actually strongly attracted to Dinah, the daughter of Yaakov. He fell in love with the girl and tried to win her affections. Shechem spoke with his father, Hamor, and he said, "Get this girl for me. I want her to be my wife." When Yaakov heard what he had defiled Dinah, his daughter, his sons were with his livestock in the field, so Yaakov restrained himself until they came. He wanted to have a little backup reinforcement here. Hamor, the father of Shechem, went out to Yaakov to speak to him just as Yaakov's sons were coming in from the field. When they heard what had happened, the men were saddened and were very angry at the outrage that this man had committed against Israel by raping Yaakov's daughter, something that is simply not done.
Can we go into that in a moment? You were mentioning his name twice there, and you've gone into the significance of why you would name him two different names there in the sentence.
Okay, what was he named the first time?
Yaakov, and then Israel.
Oh, yeah. No problem. That's an important part.
Yaakov, you don't want to miss that.
What does Yaakov mean?
Field catcher, supplanter. But
He's wrestled with men.
yeah, that's
And what did God tell him? You have wrestled with and prevailed against men and with God.
thus his title was upgraded later.
So he was upgraded to Israel. He already was prevailing against men, but now he's prevailing and wrestling with God and winning. So he was given a new name. But Hamor said to them, "My son Shechem's heart is set upon your daughter. Please give her to him as his wife, and intermarry with us. Give your daughters to us. Take our daughters for yourselves. You will live with us. The land will be available to you. You'll live and do business and acquire possessions here." Then Shechem said to her father and brothers, "Only accept me, and I will give whatever you tell me." So Shechem is willing to pay anything for this girl, for Dinah. "As large a bride price as you like, I will pay. Whatever you tell me. Just let me marry the girl." The sons of Yaakov answered Shechem and Hamor, his father, deceitfully, because he had defiled Dinah, their sister. They said to them, "We can't do it because it would be a disgrace to give our sister to someone who hasn't been circumcised. Only on this condition will we consent to what you are asking, that you become like us by having every male among you circumcised. Then we will give our daughters to you, and we'll take your daughters for ourselves, and we'll live with you and become one people. But if you won't do as we say and get circumcised, then we will take our daughter and go away." And they said, "What you said seems fair to Hamor and Shechem, the son of Hamor." And the young man did not put off doing what was asked of him, even though he was most respected member of his family, his father's family, because he so much wanted Yaakov's daughter. Hamor and Shechem, his son, came to the entrance of their city and spoke with the leading men. "These men are peaceful toward us, therefore let us live in the land and do business in it. For as you can see, the land is large enough for them. Let us take their daughters as wives for ourselves, and we will give them our daughters. But the people will consent to live with us and to become one people only on this condition, that every male among us gets circumcised as they themselves are circumcised." Won't their cattle, their possessions, and all the animals be ours? Only let us consent to do what they ask, and then they will live with us. Everyone going out the city's gate, listen to what Hamor and Shechem his son. So every man was circumcised, everyone that went out the gate. On the third day, after the circumcision, when they were in pain, 2 of Yaakov's sons, Shimon and Levi. Keep that in mind. Levi is one of the orchestrators here. Why is Levi orchestrating? Because he cares about God's standards. Dinah's brothers took their sword. I went down one too far. So Dinah's brothers took their swords, boldly descended on the city, and slaughtered all of the males. Killed them all. They killed Hamor and Shechem his son with their swords, and took Dinah out of Shechem's house and left. And then the sons of Yaakov entered over the dead bodies of those who had been slaughtered, plundered the city in reprisal for defiling their sister. They took their flocks, cattle, and donkeys, everything else, whether in the city or in the field, everything they owned, their children, their wives, they took captive. They looted whatever was in the houses.
So let's keep this in mind.
Yes.
Okay, forget it. If I have to do the microphone, I'm not going to bother. Continue. My apologies.
Why? I want to hear what you had to say. It's good. It's probably something I was already thinking about, but it's okay. Go ahead and say it. I'm not the only one permitted to have thoughts in this study.
So, I want to approach this because in a way we haven't approached before. So, if God wanted, how is it that 2 men could take down an entire, in this case, pretty much entire village, entire city of people, pretty much?
Because they were sore
Still
from
doesn't
circumcision.
matter. Still doesn't matter. If so, I guess the thing here is, why would have God allowed these 2 to succeed if it wasn't part of his plans as well?
It was. Levi was selected to be the father of the Kohanim because he demonstrated his loyalty to God and his commandments. None of the others were actively doing that. Shimon and Levi is the only 2. So now Yaakov gets a little upset. And why did he get upset?
Because he wanted relations with the nation, and he is afraid of how they now look to the other following cities, villages, and he says it there in this, if you continue reading.
So he got so upset that he disinherited them both, Levi in particular. Now, wasn't that God's plan to disinherit Levi? Because he was going to have a better inheritance from Yahweh. That Yahweh would become his inheritance. And Levi, would become an inheritance for God as the first fruits of Israel, to replace the first fruits of Israel. He says, Yaakov said to Shimon and Levi, you have caused me trouble by making me stink in the opinion of the local inhabitants.
Right.
The Canaanite, the Perizzite, since I don't have many people, they'll align themselves together against me and attack, and I will be destroyed in my household. And they replied, should we let our sister be treated like a whore? Well, that's a good question. God said to Yaakov, get up and go to Bethel and live there and make there an altar to God who appeared to you in the field. Esau of your field, when you fled, from Esau your brother. So Yaakov said to his household and to all the others with him, get rid of the foreign gods that you have with you.
Well, wait a moment. What in the world are they doing having foreign gods? Or those are the ones from Rachel?
It could be the ones from Rachel, and it could be others had gods too.
Could've been
It doesn't really say whose gods he's talking of.
And does the Hebrew go into the possessive or not?
No.
Okay.
Could have been some when they took all the spoil from after killing all the men. I mean, they did take all the captives and all the.
Right.
Right, and we understand that these so-called foreign gods or idols were place markers for.
Showing who had ownership.
Right. And so now they're moving. No need to have those markers. Get rid of them. Purify yourself.
Yep.
Put on fresh clothes. We're going to move on and go up to Bethel, where I built an altar unto God, who answered me when I was in such distress and stayed with me wherever I went. They gave Yaakov all the foreign gods in their possessions and the earrings they were wearing, and Yaakov buried them under the pistachio tree.
What is the significance of earrings back in this time?
Well, it's hard to say. The earrings were gold.
Nose rings. Those had nose
Yeah.
rings.
Well, earrings. Okay, so earrings in general. What is the?
But many of them were dedicated to gods, pagan deities. And that would have been a significant reason to get rid of them. So Yaakov buried them under the pistachio tree near Shechem. While they were traveling, a terror from God fell upon the cities around them, so that none of them pursued the sons of Yaakov. Yaakov and all the people with him arrived at Luz, that is Bethel. Remember when we were reading about Bethel, it says it was formerly known as Luz. Okay. In the land of Canaan. He built there an altar and called the place El Bethel, this God of Bethel, the God of Bethel, because it was there that God was revealed to him in the time when he was fleeing from his brother. Then Devorah, Rivka's nurse, died. She was buried below Bethel under the oak, which was given the name Alon Bachut, oak of weeping. So Devorah was Rivka's nurse.
Is Rivka Yaakov's mom?
Yeah. After Yaakov arrived from Padan Aram, God appeared to him again and blessed him. And God said to him, "Your name is Yaakov, but you will be called Yaakov no longer. Your name will be Israel." And thus he named him Israel. God further said to him, "I am El Shaddai, be fruitful and multiply. A nation, indeed, a group of nations will come from you. Kings will be descended from you."
Yeah, we're going to the relevance of that El Shaddai.
That means God who is sufficient. It actually means many-breasted one, that he is the provider for all who come to him. He's able to suckle them or take care of them, nurse them as babies, if you will. He says, "Be fruitful and multiply, a nation, indeed, a group of nations will come for you. Kings will be descended from you. Moreover, the land which I gave to Abraham, Isaac, I will give to you, and I will give the land to your descendants after you." And then God went up from him there where he had spoken with him. Yaakov set up a standing stone in the place where he had spoken with him, a stone pillar. Then he poured out a drink offering on it and poured oil on it. Yaakov called the place where God spoke with him Bethel. Then they traveled on from Bethel, and while there was still some distance to go before he arrived in Ephrat, Rachel went into labor, and she had a great difficulty with it. While she was undergoing this hard labor, the midwife said to her, "Don't worry, this is also a son for you." But she died in childbirth. So that's where Rachel departed to the other side. But she died in childbirth. As she was dying, she named her son Ben-Oni, son of my grief. But his father called him Binyamin, son of the right hand, son of the south. So Rachel died and was buried on the way to Ephrat, that is Bethlehem. And Yaakov set up a standing stone on her grave, and it is the standing stone of Rachel's grave unto this day. Israel continued his travels and pitched his tent on the other side. We're supposed to go to 36, chapter 36, and verse
some ways
43.
to go, and there's even still the names of Esau's bloodline to go through. So we have a lot of ground to cover. So
Yep.
where do you want to end this?
I think what we'll do is finish this.
It's almost finished.
Yeah, we're only
Not quite. You got another chapter after this one.
right.
I'm saying, but one was,
Well, we'll see how much time it takes. I'm really wanting to get moving and complete this if possible, but at the same time, if we hit upon a point that needs to be covered, then we'll stop and cover it, even if it removes some of our study time. Israel continued his travels and pitched his tent on the other side of Migdal Eder. It was while Israel was living in that land that Reuben went and slept with Bilhah, his father's concubine, and Israel heard about it. So there's some bad stuff. Reuben did a no-no.
Yep, it was his inheritance as the oldest.
Mm-hmm. So Yaakov had 12 sons. The sons of Leah were Reuben, Yaakov's firstborn, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Issachar, and Zebulun. The sons of Rachel were Joseph and Benjamin. The sons of Bilhah, Rachel's slave girl, were Dan and Naphtali. The sons of Zilpah, Leah's slave girl, were Gad and Asher. These were Yaakov's sons born to him in Padan Aram. Yaakov came home to his father Isaac at Mamre, near Kiryat Arba, so also known as Hebron, and where Abraham and Isaac had lived as foreigners. And Isaac lived to be 180 years old. Then he breathed his last and was gathered to his people. An old man, full of years, and his sons, Esau and Yaakov, buried him. Then we get into some of the lineage of Esau.
Right.
That is Edom. Esau chose Canaanite women as his wives. And that's what he had done even while his father was still there, and immediately after he lost his inheritance, his right of firstbornship and the blessings, he immediately went out and married Canaanite women. Ada, the daughter of Elion the Hittite, Ololivama, the daughter of Anna, the daughter of Zevon the Hivi, and Basmat, Ishmael's daughter. That's Isaac's brother, half-brother, sister of Nayot. Ada bore Esav, Eliphaz, Basmat bore Ruel, and Oholivama bore Yeshu, Yalam, and Korach. These were the sons of Esau born to him in the land of Canaan. Did you have a comment about any of that?
Well, I don't know if we've addressed this in the past, but the Hav Torah is Obadiah, who is one of the, I guess you could say, prophets to Israel who at the time.
Okay, now you'll notice that Obadiah is a name that belonged to several people. So it's not like there was only one Obadiah.
But the Obadiah in particular, referenced for the Haftorah, speaks about the so-called future fate of these so-called sons of Esau.
Okay.
And I find that relevant to bring up because there is a nation right now going through an ethnic cleansing that just I heard on the radio on the way here. I don't have enough evidence or information to connect it to, but this portion of over 600,000 people who are being massacred and murdered, who are trying to evacuate into all sorts of different areas in the Middle East right now, seems to fit that so-called prophecy.
Okay.
It may very well be the descendants of Esau from this line.
Or
And
the
I-
Mennonites, or Ishmael.
That's
Yeah.
possible.
And so I found that very relevant to bring up. I don't have evidence. I don't have enough information. I don't have enough to go on by, but it's been enough of an international affair that the Pope has traveled there to speak and try to mitigate this issue, because apparently he has a number of these people amongst his own Catholic deity there in Italy, and was even speaking Italian, and which also seemed like he was speaking also a mix of Spanish, because I could pick up on some of the words.
Well, yeah, Spaniards are huge in Catholicism.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so, which is huge for him, for enough concern for him to speak up on that, which would be a witness, so to speak, a confirmation of prophecy, based on something we've gone over in yesterday in another area, how God used witnesses, how there's a certain
Sure.
pattern.
Right.
So, I just felt like in the spirit to bring that up. I may be in error. I by no means have enough sound information, and to be honest with you, I've never even heard of these people until recently, brought up not online but on the radio
In the news.
The
Yeah.
news being picked up on the radio and then in other sources.
PR was the ones who were good about bringing that up.
Yeah.
PR.
Yeah, and it's been pretty significant, because it is very relevant to the fact that a number of these people are now also a large portion are heading towards Israel, and Israel's stance on it is essentially, we're not letting these people in.
Mm-hmm.
They can't. They're already, because they're already sending warnings. We can't have many people coming into our.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's this conflict of, well, aren't we supposed to be an example of God to these people?
Well, God will help us settle it one day.
So, and some
Okay.
of them. So,
Well, let's continue in verse 6.
thank you.
Esau took his wives, his sons, daughters, the others of his household, his cattle and other animals, and everything else he owned, which he had acquired in the land of Canaan, and went off to a country distant from his brother Yaakov. For their possessions had become too great for them to live together, and the countryside through which they were traveling couldn't support much livestock.
So much livestock, yeah.
So Esau lived in the hill country of Seir. Esau is Edom. And this genealogy of Esau, the father of Edom, in the hill country of Seir, the names of Esau's sons were Eliphaz, the son of Adah, the wife of Esau, and Ruel, the son of Basmat, the wife of Esau.
And here we go into the genealogy.
Yeah. In verse 11, the sons of Eliphaz were Teman, Omar, Zepho, Gatam, and Nats. I think that Gatam may be the one who founded Gotham City. I'm just joking.
What is the name? Amalek. Is that Amalek? Isn't there like a fake?
In other words, what's the word Amalek mean in the Hebrew? Do we have enough time to go into that?
I haven't studied the genealogy well enough to connect all that. So.
Okay.
Yeah, Amalek.
Amalek.
Because there's been others with that name, and my mom was asking what
Right.
is that name?
So there's a number of people have common names throughout the Bible. You
What
just
is
find
it?
that all over the place.
But
Look it up.
The sons of Ruel were Nahat, Zerach, Shamat, and Mizah. These were the sons of Bismat, Esau's wife. And these are the sons of Oholibamah, the daughter of Anna, the daughter of Sivan, Esau's wife. She bore Esau, Yeshu, Yalam, and Korach. And that's not the same Korach as was in the journeys exiting from Egypt. The chieftains, the sons of Esau, were the sons of Eliphaz, the firstborn of Esau, the chieftains of Telem, Omar, Zipho, and Kenatz, Korach, Gatam, and Amalek. These were the chieftains descending from Eliphaz and Edom, and from Adah, the son of Ruel. Come on, let's go.
It's also
down.
it's significant to remember there have been teachings in the past in error that said that Esau and Yaakov, Israel, meeting in this Torah was the last time they met. When you see that they met again to bury their father.
Yeah.
So I mean, obviously, they had met again many other
Well,
times.
it does. The Bible doesn't say that was their last meeting, so I don't believe it.
Exactly. But there have been, I do want to bring up that in previous teachings in churches
Sure.
that in error.
I didn't realize this, but on 31, when you get there, because we're still going through the names.
Right.
when you get
Well,
to
let's
verse
just keep
31,
reading and see where we come to, and if anything else
The
comes up, we'll
kings.
chase that little bunny trail. Okay.
Yeah, the kings.
Okay, verse 17, the sons of Ruel, Esau's son, were the chieftains of Nachat, Zerah, Shammah, and Mizah, and these were the chieftains descended from Ruel in the land of Edom from Basmat, Esau's wife. The sons of Oholibamah, Esau's wife, were chieftains of Yeshu, Yalam, and Korach. These were the chieftains descending from Oholibamah, the daughter of Anah, Esau's wife. These were the descendants of Esau, that is Edom, and these were their chieftains. These were the descendants of Seir, the Hori, the local inhabitants, Lotan, Shoval, Ziphon, Anat, Dishan, Etzer, and Dishan. They were the chieftains descended from Hori, the people of Seir in the land of Edom. The sons of Lotan were Hori, Heman. Lotan's sister was Timnah. The son of Shoval were Alvan, Manachat, Eval, Shepho, or Shepho, and Onam. The sons of Zivan were Ayah and Anna. This is the Anna who found the hot springs in the desert while pasturing his father Zivan's donkeys. The children of Anna were Dishan and Olovimah, the daughter of Anna. The sons of Dishan were Haman, Hemdan, Eshban, Yitran, and Karan. The sons of Etzer were Bilhan, Zaavan, and Akan. The sons of Dishan were Utz and Aran. These were the chieftains descending from Hori, the chieftains of Lotan, Shavah, and a bunch more names that are hard for me to pronounce. Following are the kings who reigned in the land of Edom before any king had reigned over the people of Israel. Bela, the son of Beor, reigned in Edom. And I remember the name of Beor from the story of can't remember the name now. Huh?
Moses?
What?
The story of the talking donkey, remember?
Oh, yeah.
Balaam?
Balach Belim.
Balak and Balaam. hmm
Balaam.
Bela, the son of Beor, reigned in Edom, and the name of his city was Dinhavah. When Bela died, Yova, the son of Zerach from Botzarah, reigned in his place. And I want to skip on down here. I think we're going to call that good enough unless somebody wants to go to another place of observation and study. Okie dokie. Next week we have Vayishev. Yaakov continued living in the land where his father had lived as a foreigner, in the land of Canaan. So we will be taking a look at Yaakov as the first of Israel's people to live in the land of Canaan.
And Joseph.
What?
What?
Camera right, she said. Okie dokie. Well, that's going to be it for tonight's study. I hope you enjoyed it. I would like to encourage you to get into next week's Parashat as well and continue looking at the life of Yaakov. And we'll see what kind of history comes along with Yaakov as he is the father of Israel. And these are very interesting stories, especially when you begin to take a look at their interaction in the Rakia, and that they are very strongly godly men that have a knowledge of spiritual matters. So it's pretty interesting things, and I hope you'll read along with us and participate when you can in our studies. All right. Well, Shalom, everyone, and I'll see you next week. Well, I probably look better without the head. Anyway.
The top anyway.
So we'll plan on having another Bible study next Tuesday, and the Lord be with you and direct you as you study. And hopefully you can send some questions in to Ask the Rabbi at tzion.org, and we can see if we can address some of your questions. So far we haven't really had any. So if you'd like to participate, it's open to you, and we'd love to hear from you. Shalom Aleichem, and until next time, may God be with you, and His peace be your director of your path and your knowledge and understanding. Amen.
Thank you for joining us for another delightful evening of our Torah class. Again, we want to invite you to join us again for this coming Shabbat. That is Saturday mornings for our 10 a.m. Bible Issues class, followed by our 11 a.m. main service with worship, liturgy, and another teaching by Rabbi David Hall, being led by Yahweh himself. Hallelujah. We'll see you again. In the meantime, shalom, shalom.